Mr. Jysing, will you return to the witness box, please?
Mr. Jysing, you know, still on the oath.
Okay, sir.
So when we left off, we were about to have a video which you said you took, shown. Sorry. Might it be shown, please?
You wasted an entire day with people calling in sick. You wasted an entire day with people calling in sick, people being rushed to hospital, third person sick. Like let this process continue until it finishes.
Which is what you said would happen.
Right.
Let's get the bottle. Like, why do you think this is
Listen clearly to me. I've been hearing all of you.
No, let's listen.
Because you really don't understand what I made a promise to you telling me no, but the competency of the agency.
But we're all here. We're your people to get the process.
Right. So
let's move forward. What?
So. If they're not here, what do you want me to do?
No, there is authorized in law to conduct the exercise.
That a returning officer is a deputy returning officer.
Make it worse 2 hours. I very certainly got carried with some signings that could get somebody here there faster. This is disrespecting people's time.
But there is one here, sir.
There's a DRO right here. There's a DRO right here. And the law says any deputy returning officer can do this job.
Is this the person we were supposed to wait for?
He doesn't have to make any declarations. We just have to verify the results.
So why can't continue?
Exactly. Now we're starting to think that there's something
Sinister.
And in all fairness, I'm certain that if you were on the other side, you're saying you don't understand. No, you don't understand either. The thing about it is that you're the person supposed to be making sure that we understand what is going on.
Can we make a decision to restart the DRO is present here and now, just behind me?
Commissioner. Notwithstanding our remarks that when I left, I spoke with Mr. Nanlaha and the agent for the party. We called the gentleman who said he would have been here. I had called him initially while I was here. When he said he didn't know it was I who was called, I called him before I left to change my mind. He said he would have been here.
So what are you saying? If he doesn't turn up, we don't proceed? Is that what we're saying?
Okay, so he is not here, but we have another DRO who, in accordance with the law, can continue the process. So can we please continue the process?
Exactly.
Who is here? That's all we're asking, sir.
We're here.
That just everybody. There's just one simple request on the floor here. There's a need for a DRO. A DRO is here. In accordance with the law, you're asking for that DRO to restart the process. That's all. Simple. Thank you, sir.
Right. It's not so simple for me. I am dealing with his bank. I am making efforts to bring closure to his bank corridor as it relates to the process.
So how the use of this DRO prevent you from making progress on these plans?
Excuse me. It's quite confusing.
How is it that
It's a DRO of the district.
The DRO is here.
Work under the DRO.
That's correct. How is DRO, sir, in the greatest respect, preventing you from moving forward?
When I was spoken to you, told me you wanted to deal with this process when I brought up other issues. So why aren't we focusing on this issue? Because this is the important issue. We are more concerned about this issue and this process being completed.
And DRO, again I emphasize, a DRO of the district
That is established. The problem is we have the DRO here. Why are we starting? Why
Mr. Lowenfield is not making any sense at all.
Mr. Lowenfield has a rule of convenience apparently.
No.
The gentleman said I really am not making any sense.
I just think that we talk.
I agree with you.
I'm not worrying about any gentleman here.
I agree.
Mr. Lowenfield,
I am not making any sense.
Mr. Lowenfield, I am asking you, as the presidential candidate for the PDP, as everyone around here, as why the process cannot restart. We have a DRO here. The DRO is ready to proceed with the process. What is the hindrance from this DRO proceeding with the process of this law? You said earlier that you wanted this process to continue all night until it's completed. We have the DRO in position now. What is the holdback now? What is the holdback?
I'm saying to you that as here, it is my desire to utilize a DRO from 4 belonging to this bank.
But where the law does not
Lots of desires.
provide for a
Lots of
DRO.
desires. There are many places and things that I would like to do in life.
And the DRO is here. We can desire anything, but the law provides what are the frame of our desire. You can't go out of the law to your personal desire. If you go out of the law to your personal desire, it's exercising bias.
So with that point, that need let's use this arrow for East Coast.
No, that is not the point.
No.
Mr. Lowenfield is saying he wants to continue with the East Bank. I have no objection with that. You have a DRO here, let's continue. If you want, if you want the DRO from the East Coast, we move from Georgetown to the East Bank.
Without completing yours.
We didn't complete Georgetown.
Without completion, that's the point.
We have to complete District 4. We have to. We are committed to this process. We are committed to this process.
It's 1 hour.
As long as
Supposed to do it.
we are not leaving the building.
That's the point.
Be specific.
So, sir, the position here is that we have a DRO in place, that the law provides for it to continue this process. It's not based on desire. It's not based on
You
self-interest.
have a DRO that you set for.
That what?
A DRO that we set for, you have a
This
DRO,
is
sir. You have a DRO, everybody has a DRO. With all the DROs. You have a DRO.
Are you disavowing that he's a chief of staff? That is a chief of staff?
Mr. CEO, could I raise?
Don't do that to me. You know the other guy I called, who is it? What you really doing to me, man?
Don't worry about
Mr.
it.
CEO, could I just raise a point?
Listen.
That if the young ladies had stayed on, they would have done East Coast and East Bank, they weren't specific to a
Can
region.
I please stick to the question? We have a DRO in place, please. The only issue here is that we have a DRO, we need a DRO is in place, there is no humbug, let us continue the process. It is not based on desire, it is based on the law, and that is what we are asking.
Just do your job.
For
Yeah,
you
let's
to
do it and
continue
just do your
doing your
job.
job in accordance with the law,
Just do your
and let
job.
us have a DRO in place and continue this process.
Yeah, Mr. Lowenfield, just do your job. Let's get these
That is what I
results.
came here to you, you know.
But let's go.
Let's proceed.
Listen to me, man.
Let's
When
proceed.
you're telling me, take Tom, David, Jane, you go because they're here. You're not allowing him.
That's what the law says.
You employ Tom, David, and if the
That's not qualified and empowered by the law.
they're employed by GCOM.
I don't see what's the resistance.
Appointed by you.
You deal with the law.
What's the resistance about?
I asked when I left here.
No. Let's get this right.
No.
You asked when you left here, you spoke to a guy from East Bank, and you said the guy from East Coast should come also. That was the final understanding that you left the place with.
Listen to it context. I said the East Coast, by in the morning, I said to both of you, we should be in the East Coast and we utilize the services. That's my point.
So can we not? There's one question here. It's not can. The law provides, Mr. Commissioner, for us to use any DRO.
I'm asking what is the impediment you see to using this person who's here now, Mr. CEO? What is the impediment?
There's none.
I'm waiting for an answer. Don't take long.
No, you're leaving without that. You're leaving without taking
What's this?
This need to cooperate. This is high-handed.
Just so that we're clear, they would
Democracy is a trend.
Yes.
Ms. Cho, you have to accept that the quality of the sound is horrible.
Yes.
It's extremely difficult. Only snippets were clearly audible. And for myself, I'm at a disadvantage.
Yes, well, I don't think that that part of the video permits us to hear the conversation. The dialogue upon which we rely is to be found in the first part of the video. We can't do better than that with respect. All we can get is the visual. So we see that he walked off and he appeared to be speaking to two people. And
No, I'm not. At that point and before, it was the audio was very poor. I couldn't hear clearly.
Yes. Well, as I indicated,
Is that the best equipment that they have?
I am not responsible for the
No.
regretfully.
I'm not saying that you are. They should tell you whether this is equipment that they retrieved from some World War II cabinet or whether it's new equipment.
I will inquire, but rest assured, Commissioner.
Because if we are going to have to look at other video pieces,
Yes.
and that will be the quality of the sound, it becomes a useless exercise.
Yes.
I was straining to hear what was happening.
Yes, what I promised is that we will also be providing you, the commissioners, with transcripts of the proceedings.
Oh, good. That would be helpful.
Mr. Jaising, I have some questions just to finish off. Now, that video was on the night of the 4th of March 2020, correct?
Correct.
That's when you went to Ashman's building.
Yes.
And they were talking about, in the video, they were talking about a DRO in the foyer. You heard that?
Yeah.
And you told us when you went to Ashman's, you first sat in the foyer on the ground floor.
Yes.
Can you tell us whether you were the DRO being discussed?
Yes, I was the DRO. I was in the background.
Okay. Was there any other DRO there at the time?
No.
When you told us earlier that Mr. Liban had taken the laptop you had been using and had gone to another room and then come back into the tabulation room with a laptop, can you tell us whether he gave any indication that this was not the laptop which he had taken from you?
No, he didn't say.
I'm asking that the video be admitted and marked as PJ56, and it will be placed on CE1, which contains all the audio-visual material. These are my questions for this witness.
No, sorry. Mr. Jai Singh, you told us that you were involved in the 2020 elections.
Yes.
And that you worked in previous elections at the national level.
Yes.
Would you say that you were fairly familiar with voting procedures? That is, a voter arrives, what happens from the time the voter enters the polling station to the time the voter exits. You are familiar with that process?
Yes.
So, for my own benefit at least, and I'm sure it will be useful to my brethren, can you take us through step by step? I don't want a lengthy explanation. What's the first step when the voter comes in?
Okay, they will go to an individual we call an information clerk. The information clerk will check and ensure that they're entitled to vote here. They will check for their name.
So the voter first goes to an information clerk.
Yes, and the clerk will direct them to which polling station to go.
Don't let's rush it. The voter goes to an information clerk.
Yes.
You told us that the information clerk checks the eligibility of the person to vote.
Not the eligible. Check the list to ensure that they're on the list there to vote.
So the clerk just checks for a name.
Yes, the ID number and name.
So how would the clerk know the person's ID number?
They will normally walk with it. There's a
the
list.
Clerk walks with the number?
There's a list, the OLE. They will check a list and then direct them to which polling station to vote.
Yes. When the voter goes to the identification clerk, the voter simply says, I am Paul Jising.
They produce the ID card.
They have to produce an ID card.
Yes.
There's a process, and I'd like you to be as detailed as possible.
Okay, detailed as
Good.
Noted.
The voter goes to the voter identification clerk and says, I am Paul Jising, and produces an identification card.
Correct.
What does the clerk do then?
The clerk will check the list, ensure that the person is listed there, and direct them to which polling station to go to vote.
Which polling station to go to vote?
Yes.
So from the clerk, the person goes to vote.
The polling station.
Are they in the polling station?
No, they're not in the polling station.
Where are they?
They might be at the gate or close to the polling place. They're information clerk.
Let's leave that part out. I just said to you, the voter enters the polling station.
Okay, we're skipping a part here. Okay.
Yes, leave that out.
Okay, no
When
problem.
the voter enters, what happens?
They go to a poll clerk.
They go to a poll clerk.
Yes.
And do what?
They produce their identification card.
So if we go back to what you earlier said, this will be the second time the voter is producing an ID card.
Yes.
Good.
They produce
First to a voter identification clerk, when they get into the polling station, they produce the ID card now to a polling clerk.
Yes.
Yes.
The poll
Having
clerk.
produced the ID card, what next?
The poll clerk will check for the particulars, announce it loudly for everyone there to hear, like their name, their occupation, their address.
Where does the polling clerk get this information from?
The poll clerk will also have a copy of the official list of
Well, can you tell us, please?
electors, yes.
Yes, so the polling clerk, having seen the identification details of the voter, then calls out details from the official list of electors.
Right.
Yes, then?
And then the poll clerk will direct the voter either to the presiding officer, if there's a special case, if it's an ordinary voter, to the assistant presiding officer.
Who's an extraordinary voter?
Those are voters that who vote by way of proxy.
Those are special voters?
Yes. Like if they're voting for someone else. So they'll be issued 2 ballot paper instead of 1.
So after the polling clerk, the voter is directed either to the presiding officer or
the assistant presiding officer.
Or an assistant presiding officer.
Yes.
What happens then?
They will also request the identification card.
You have to show the identification card.
They will check it.
That's the voter's ID card for the
Yes.
3rd time.
Yes.
Yes.
Then they will check the voter's fingers for electoral ink, and they proceed to issue the ballot paper.
What would the presence of electoral ink on the finger indicate?
It can indicate that you voted already.
So the fingers are checked. Once they are without any evidence of electoral ink, they are then given
ballot paper. A stamp ballot paper.
Yes.
They will write the serial number at the top, serial number at the bottom, fold it, and there's a 6-digit stamp. They will stamp at the top and stamp at the bottom, and issue the ballot paper to the voter. And if they don't know how to vote, there's a specimen, you could show them how to vote. If they know to vote, you direct them to the voting compartment.
So they go there and they vote.
They vote.
And then what?
They go to the, I think I skipped a step. No. I think I skipped a step.
Well, I don't know the process. You tell us.
No, we're going correct. They
Thank you.
When they finish voting, they go to the ballot clerk. Now the ballot clerk will allow them to enter the ballot paper into the ballot box. But before they do so, they have to immerse their right index finger in electoral ink. So they do it simultaneously. The right finger goes in, and the ballot paper goes in the ballot box. And then the ballot clerk directs them how to leave the polling station. Exit the station.
Now, I want to take you back to the video we just looked at. You said when the representations were made that there is a DRO from the East Coast, you were that person they were speaking about.
Yes.
I gather from that video that seeming political party representatives were urging the person in the purple shirt, shaven head, or bald, one or two. I know more of the latter. Who would that person have been?
I think that is one of the parties. I'm not sure which party.
The man in the purple polo shirt was the one.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if he's a
Can
party.
you play the video again, please?
He's a party agent or.
The man who's
You wasted an entire day with people calling sick.
Color purple, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the CEO.
Yeah.
You know his name?
Mr. Keith Lowenfield.
Mr. Keith Lowenfield. So I gather from the video images that we've been seeing and the limited audio that party representatives were saying to him, let's continue the tabulation process.
Correct.
And let's use the DRO. That was because the RO was not present?
The RO was not present, nor the staff that took over from him. I think two female staff was performing the task already and they went away because they were tired.
They went away, that's all you can say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I came after the fact.
So the party representatives were saying, let's continue the process, please, using a DRO who is present.
Yes.
Did it appear to you that Mr. Lowenfield was reluctant to do that?
Yeah, yes, he was very reluctant.
Did you hear a reason?
No special reason.
Well, tell me, did you hear an unspecial reason?
I don't know what's the reason why he...
You didn't hear him give any reason? But you were there?
Yeah.
But I'm sure I heard him say, I want to complete the East Bank. Did you hear that?
Yes, I heard.
Was that the reason?
Yeah, that was the reason. You want to complete East Bank, yes.
And? Did you hear someone say a DRO is a DRO for the district?
Yes.
That means East Bank, Le Penitence, Cummings Lodge. A DRO for District 4 can perform the functions wherever you want.
Correct.
Did he accede to that request?
Eventually, we had a meeting and I was asked to continue the verification, yes.
You were asked to continue the verification?
Yes.
And did you complete District 4?
No.
What happened?
That's when Mr. Livan complained of being tired, and that's when the process abruptly ended.
You were asked to assist with the process?
Yeah, assist with the process. Myself and Mr. Livan.
You need to be careful with language.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You've been very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Our next witness is Captain Gerald Govaya. Might he be sworn in?
Mr. Jerry Govaya, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon, sir. Will you state your name?
My name is Gerald Govaya.
And Mr. Govaya, did you give a statement in this matter?
I did.
And did you sign and initial it?
I did.
And if you see that again, will you be able to identify it?
Yes.
I'm asking that the document be shown to him.
Yes.
Is that the statement which you gave?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm asking this be admitted, that this be admitted as GG1. We have 3 copies for the commissioners.
Thank you.
So would you state your full name?
My name is Gerald Richard Gavaya.
And what is your address?
R8 Epping Avenue, Bel Air Park, Georgetown.
And you are called Captain Govaya at times?
Yes.
What do you do?
Now,
Yes.
I'm a pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the owner of Roraima Airways.
And before that, had you been a member of the Guyana Defense Force?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the Private Sector Commission?
Yes.
In 2020, were you the chairman of that commission?
Yes.
Do you recall March 2020
Yes.
and the general and regional elections held there?
Yes.
Were you an accredited observer for those elections?
Yes.
On behalf of which body?
The Private Sector Commission.
I would like you to give us a little information about the organization which you refer to as the Private Sector Commission.
The Private Sector Commission is the apex private sector organization of Guyana. Mm-hmm. In Guyana, we have chambers of commerce that is geographically based in Georgetown, in Berbice, in Upper Quarantine, in Central Quarantine, in the Rupununi, in Bartica, in the Essequibo, and the elected presidents of those chambers of commerce, as well as the leaders of the Tourism and Hospitality Association, the Manufacturing Association. They're all democratically elected, and they sit around a table, and that table together with those leaders are called the Private Sector Commission. And among those leaders, they elect a chairperson who is who serves for 2 years maximum, and then they can serve again for another 3 years.
So this is a voluntary organization?
Yes.
And what does the commission do?
Private Sector Commission represents the interests of the private sector and private sector development directly with the government of Guyana and the international community and other stakeholders in Guyana.
Now, prior to March 2020, had you ever been involved in electoral logistics and so on in Guyana?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the registration process?
Very much so, yes.
And had you been involved in the reforming of that process?
Yes, I had a contribution in it, yes.
Okay. Well, could you tell us what that reform was?
Well, in 2006, and just after the 2006 elections, the PNC was protesting on the streets because they said no verification, no vote. So the Private Sector Commission asked to meet with them to find what is it they meant. And they said that they needed biometrics in the registration process. We tried understanding what is it that they were talking about, and we were not sure. I was in Washington afterwards at a program I was doing at the National Defense University, and there was a gentleman who came to us to do a program on airport security using biometrics. I asked him about biometrics in elections, and he said they just finished a program in Jamaica, and maybe if we went to Jamaica we'd find it. So I flew to Jamaica through the private sector of Jamaica, met with the Elections Commission in Jamaica, and they showed me what they were doing. I videotaped it and I brought it back to Guyana, and I gave a copy to the leader of the opposition, president at the time, and the chairman of GCOM, which was Dr. Surzbali at the time. Shortly after, I think GCOM sent a team to Jamaica, and then the government of Guyana, I believe, bought a very expensive software for $600,000 US that would be used in the transformation of biometrics and digitizing the manual fingerprint scanning into the database. And that was done and it was agreed on, done, and the first time we used it was in 2008.
Great. Now, What does PNC stand for?
People's National Congress.
So before that, was everything paper-based?
Everything was manual, and there was a big concern that, and the private sector agreed with them, that it was a big concern that you could have had duplicates on the National Register of Registrants and the voters list, because you were just depending on face recognition by just watching at a person and their biodata. And so we did agree with them that adding the fingerprints biometrics to the registration process and going through the regular scanning of the database to take out duplicates would make the database a lot more secure and credible.
Yes. Now, I take it that the PSC continued to work with GCOM after you initiated this process?
Yes, the Private Sector Commission constantly met with GCOM, with the chairman, with the CEO, because we were very concerned about the democratic rule, the rule of law, because it is exceptionally important for private sector development that we live in a society of the rule of law and democracy and respect for the Constitution. And so we constantly would meet with different stakeholders, the parties, GCOM, to discuss and ensure that things were happening in a way that we were comfortable with, and we were contributing to that discussion.
Okay, so you said initially the process had been manual, and then there was this reform which led to digitization of materials. So the fingerprints were digitized, correct?
It was taken manually, scanned into the computer, and digitized into the computer.
And a photograph was also digitized.
That's correct.
So is it that a folio was created?
Yes, the folio was created. The national ID card was also upgraded and improved in terms of the security features. So every ID card now had 3 pictures in it. The big one, and another one, small one in front, and the back of it had another one as well. And they also agreed at that time to introduce the continuous cycles of registration, and they were registering 14-year-olds in the schools, and then the database, when they become 18, would kick them over to the voters roll. And so we were very, very pleased with the new system, the new data, the new ID cards, the fingerprints, and the new system to register.
Sure.
People.
And the folio, apart from having the digital material, would it also have biodata on it?
It will have your photograph and all your biodata, that's correct.
I see. And as far as you know, is this folio used by GCOM presiding officer during the course of elections?
As far as I know, when the 5 GCOM staff, the presiding officer, and the parties in the room all have a folio with your name and your photograph in it. So when you enter the room, everybody has to agree that you are the person standing in front of them. And they do that by your photograph, and if there's any doubt, then they would ask you questions that you would have to answer that match the biodata that they have in front of them.
Now, sir, I would take it that after all these years, you have witnessed the outcomes of many elections in Guyana.
Yes.
And do you take a view with respect to any of those?
Well, I take it very personal, because as a GDF officer, back in the 70s and 80s, the Army was involved in election logistics. Something that when I became senior enough, it bothered me that we were not doing the right thing. We were involved in a process that was interfering with the democratic process of Guyana. And so when I got into the private sector and started my company, came back to Guyana, I was determined to do whatever I could do to make sure and prevent ever again our uniformed personnel ever again getting involved in that electoral process, and to ensure that our democracy was strong and alive. And the first time we got involved was in 1992 when Jimmy Carter came to Guyana, and Desmond Hoyt agreed to the process that needed to be reformed. And when that was done in 1992, I actually felt very comfortable with the electoral process that started in 1992, where we were now counting the votes at the place of poll. Before that, we used to vote and then collect the ballot boxes and transport them 100 miles away to some central place to count it, and along that process is where we had a lot of questionable things that was happening. So the new process was something I was very comfortable with.
I take it at some point you left the army.
Yes.
Now, do you know Mr. Keith Lowenfield?
Yes.
And how did you come to know him?
We both were in the army together, and we were in training programs together.
Now, while you were chairman of the PSC, Mr. Lowenfield was CEO of GCOM,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And prior to the March 2020 elections, did you have any interaction with him?
Yes, constantly. We were constantly in touch with each other.
And why was this?
Well, because first of all, he was not always the CEO. He was, I think, the deputy, and he worked in GCOM. And so I would always work with him because of the pilot, the geography of Guyana is something that I am very familiar with. So I was able to give a lot of advice sometimes and guidance in the logistics of moving things around Guyana and personnel and so on. So I always worked with them on that. And then the Private Sector Commission have always applied for and was granted observer status. So constantly we dealt with the management of GCOM, which included Lowenfield, and we always had a very, very good relationship.
Now, do you recall the 2nd of March 2020? That's the day of elections.
Yes.
On that day, what did you do?
The ABC ambassadors, which I have been doing for many elections, while the international observers were deployed at polling stations, the ambassadors wanted to particularly do a spot check around the country. So I would normally fly them around. I would take off from Oakland in the morning. We flew to Region 2 at the Escribo. We visited 4 or 5 polling stations. They were able to observe what was happening. Then we went to Bartica, Region 7, Region 10, Region 6. And what we found was an amazing demonstration of professionalism by the GCOM staff. Actually, I was very proud of Lowenfield, the work he was doing. When we got there, it was like a franchise. Everywhere you went, the efficiency, there was no problems. The lines were moving, and it was a very, very professional execution of his duties. And I was very pleased with it. I'm very pleased to have known him.
Yes. Well, he's still alive. Oh, you said ABCE. What do you mean by ABCE?
The Americans, the British, the Canadians, and the European Union.
I see. So as far as you observed on election day, the voting process was working well?
Absolutely.
Do you recall the afternoon of the 3rd of March 2020?
Yes. In fact, I wonder if yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. And did you go to Ashman's building on that afternoon?
Yes.
In what capacity did you go there?
I was the head of the Private Sector Commission Observer team. Mm-hmm. And so I was basically moving around as I did during the day. And so I would go and we had a lot of observers from the private sector at the Ashman building. So I would stop in to check with them to see how things were going as well.
Sure. When you got there, what was happening?
If my memory recalls me correctly, at the time I got there, I don't believe there was any activity. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong because I know the process was stopped on the day of the 3rd. And the next day when Mr. Mingo went to the hospital, but it stopped sometime on the 3rd, and I do not remember exactly when I got there, if they were still, I believe they had stopped, mm-hmm. But I do not absolutely recall. But I know they stopped on the 3rd and they never resumed their operations until later on the 4th.
All right. So did you stay very long at Ashman's?
About an hour or so.
And did you return there on the 4th of March 2020?
Yes.
During that period of time, did you see the CEO?
Yes.
And were you familiar with the deputy CEO, Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Did you see her on the 4th at Ashman's?
Yes.
And what was happening at that point? Can you recall?
Yes, by the time I got there on the 4th, there was a lot of concern that after Mr. Mingo apparently had gotten ill and they had evacuated him from the building in a stretcher. And later that morning, some female staff of GCOM appeared to continue the tabulation process. But this time they were not doing what Mingo started to do, because when Mingo started the process on the morning of the 3rd, he was doing it correctly. And the people in the room were satisfied with what was happening from the morning of the 3rd. I think it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And he was doing it statement to poll by statement to poll. And they went into the 3rd. And when he stopped, and then next day he went into the hospital, the staff that came to continue the process changed the procedure that he was using. When they came into the room, they had this spreadsheet, which they call a broadsheet. Right. And they started to call, and people in the room were very, very upset because they were calling wrong numbers.
Sure. So by the time you got there, it appeared that there had been some sort of problem which had arisen.
That's correct.
And during the course of that night, that's to say from the 4th into the 5th of March 2020, I don't want to go into too much detail, but can you recall that there were other disruptions?
Well, I'd like to say to you that on the day of the 4th, the ABC ambassadors and a lot of the senior leaders of the international community descended on the Ashland building. So a lot of them were in the building and observing what was happening, and they were all appalled. And then it went on into the night when you had all the confusion went on there, and then on the 5th is when they attempted that. So they stopped it. They never completed it, and my observer in the room, Kit Nascimento, reported to me that they did not finish the tabulation. And then Mr. Mingo turned up and said he was ready to do a declaration.
And when you said declaration, what
he was declaring the results of Region 4, even though the process was not completed.
Sure. Kit Nascimento was an accredited observer for PSC?
That's correct, yes.
Now, what did the PSC then do?
We called a press conference at the Private Sector Commission building, and we commenced to keep the nation and the members of the Private Sector Commission informed of what we were seeing and our concerns of what was happening.
Did you have any conversation with the CEO?
No. Every time because as an observer, it was very important to me to stay arm's length away from the GCOM administration at that time, and so I did that. I chose not to be in contact with him, and I didn't.
Okay. And did you try to contact anybody else, or did PSC try to contact anybody else from GCOM's
executive? I actually, when there were the confusion going on in the room at GCOM on the night of the 4th, I went to the chairperson of GCOM and asked her to come downstairs, because all of the party agents and the observers were really, really upset to come downstairs and to try to talk to them. And she did. We went downstairs together. She stood in the room, she spoke to everybody and asked them to be tolerant and so on. But the people were not prepared to let it go. And then I also were in constant contact with the ABC ambassadors, who were determined not to leave the room as well, and they stayed throughout the process.
When you say, Mr. Delay, you went to the chairman
yes.
of GCOM.
Yes.
Where was she?
She was upstairs in the same building.
In the Ashland building?
Yes, and she was in a room there. And when the confusion was happening downstairs and it was building and the tension was getting higher and higher, and I thought that maybe if she came downstairs and talked to people, that we could lower the tension, because Louis Field was not there.
You went to a room where she was being
yes.
accommodated?
Yes.
There was a door leading to that room?
Yes.
Were you able to open the door?
Yes. And there was no confusion there. I spoke to the police.
No,
sorry.
Confusion. Yeah. I will make it clear to you what I'm asking.
Yes.
You were able to open the door yourself?
The policeman opened the door for me.
He was in or out of the door?
Out of the door.
Did you observe whether the door had any handles on it, or you didn't?
No, I didn't recall.
You don't recall?
No.
Thank you.
So there was a policeman standing outside the door of the chairman's office?
Yes.
And when you entered the room, was there anyone in there with her?
There were
At that time?
There were other policemen, I think 1 or 2 other policemen sitting and standing around in the room. But I had no problem accessing the chairman at the time.
I see. Was anyone from GCOM in the room with her?
No.
Now, at the end of it, did the PSC do a report?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you a document and you'll indicate to me whether that is the report.
Yes.
I'm asking that this be admitted as GG2. And 3 copies have been provided for the commissioners. That's a very good one. Now, sir, we have a bundle of documents to go through here, so please be patient with me as I... Sorry? Of course.
Mr. Cloutier, this one that we just received, this, I notice it doesn't have a signature or anything, but this was your organization's official report. Was it issued to any party or any group or any organization?
Well, when it was finished, it was given, a copy was given to GCOM, and I think shared with the international community as well.
Now, you said you were appointed as an accredited observer. Did you have to put in an application?
Yes, the private sector will normally write the chairperson of GCOM requesting to be accredited, and then we'd have to, they would then write back with the authorization, with the approval, and then we'd have to send them the list of names of people, and then they will send back a blanket approval for the names that we submit to them.
Sure. And did you get a letter from GCOM to PSC giving approval?
I would have to say yes, but I do not particularly recall the letter itself. But I do, we were all accredited and issued ID cards, so I would have to say yes.
Sure. But are you familiar with the name Kim Beck?
No.
Okay. Well, then I won't ask you if you can identify this document.
Just ask Mr. Cloutier, I think you had input into the document.
Well, I didn't write it myself.
No.
Yeah, well, yes. The person that wrote it would have been consulting with all of us in the room, yes.
On the evening of the 4th of March, 2020, when you returned to the Ashland building, at some point you said you remember that female GCOM officers were calling out numbers, presumably of votes garnered by the respective competing political parties, and that party agents were complaining and protesting that the numbers being called did not correspond to the numbers on their statements of poll.
That's correct.
Yes. As an accredited observer for a reputable organization, the Private Sector Commission, did you endeavor to do any verification of this complaint?
Yes, because we had copies of the statements of poll as well.
Yes. And
we did not interfere in the process. Observers do not interfere in the process. We observe and then we do what we do. We write the report afterwards. And so what we endeavored to do was to observe what was happening. There was all the other observers in the room as well. And the political parties are the ones that was protesting and getting involved in the process. The observers, we just observe. We don't get involved.
That was not my question.
Okay.
hearing this complaint and the protest by the political parties,
Yes.
your numbers are not corresponding with my statements of poll.
Correct.
You're an accredited observer
Yes.
of a reputable organization.
Yes.
You have statements of poll.
Yes.
Did you do any verification yourself?
Yes.
You don't have to get involved.
Yes, yes,
Did
we
you
did.
establish then, putting it another way, that the complaints and the protests by the political parties was sound, valid, legitimate?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I just say, I did not myself, there were private sector observers in the room, Kit Nascimento, for example, who had, and he was reporting to us, because I did not have it myself. And he was reporting to myself as the head and chairman of the Private Sector Commission, that he was verifying what was happening as real.
So you did not verify?
Not myself, no.
So you could not answer yes just now, that would have been wrong. Because my question was directed to your involvement. You did not verify.
Right.
So what you said just now was not correct.
Okay, yes.
That's not a big issue.
No, that's fine.
If you were informed, I can accept that.
Yes.
Well, sir, you were not only informed by Mr. Nascimento, but you relied on his observations.
That's right.
And that is because he was one of the accredited observers for the
That's right.
organization which you chaired.
That's right.
Okay, so I have some documents which I'm going to ask you about. You said that you all issued a press release, and this was on the 5th of March 2020. So I'm going to ask you whether you can identify whether this was a press release that you issued.
Yes, this is the press release that was.
Thank you. Might this be admitted as, yes, 3 copies? Right, it's also there on the screen. And just to indicate what you all were complaining, you said the Private Sector Commission is appalled at the blatant and deliberate attempts by GCOM to destroy our democracy by derailing the tabulation process of the 2020 election results and attempts to subvert the will of the people. And this press release was made after you had had input from all of the observers for your organization?
That's right.
Now, you also told us that the ABCE ambassadors had issued a statement on the 5th of March 2020. You told us that?
Yes.
And these were the same persons who you had taken around the country to observe the voting process on the 2nd.
Correct.
So you had known them.
Yes.
And if you see a copy of that statement which they issued, will you be able to identify it?
Yes.
A document is now placed in your hand. Have a look at it.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm asking that this be admitted as GG5. GG4, I'm sorry. And just to be clear, this joint statement was issued on behalf of the British High Commissioner, the Canadian High Commissioner, the Ambassador of the European Union, and the Ambassador of the United States of America, correct?
Yes.
And essentially what they said in this statement is that they had questioned the credibility of the region 4 results published by GCOM today. Now, is it correct to say that this statement was issued after Mr. Mingo had purported to declare the results for District 4?
I would have, based on that, I would have to say yes.
Thank you. Okay, and let me see. The EU Election Observation Mission had also issued its own statement on that day. Not so?
Yes.
If you see that, will you be able to identify it?
Yes. Yes.
Might this be admitted as GG5? Now, among other things, this statement from the EU basically made the observation that the returning officer for Region 4 had declared results before the legally required tabulation process had been completed. Not so? On the 12th of March 2020, the EU had written to Mr. Mingo. Are you aware of that? Did you get a copy of that?
The private sector would have gotten a copy of it, I believe.
Okay. Now, if you can't recognize a document, simply say.
Let me have a look at it. If I maybe
Sure.
I will tell you.
No problem. It's not the best print, but we'll make do with what we have. You recognize that?
I recognize the document, but I'm sorry, my eyes is. I couldn't read it. Sorry about it.
Okay, no problem. Yes, it's not a clear copy at all. And your commission, the Private Sector Commission, issued another press release on the 18th of March 2020. Not so?
Yes.
I take it if you see that one, you'll be able to identify it.
Yes. Yes.
She got these to the commission. What a nonsense. Might this be marked GG6? And so this one and it's up on the screen, but the entire document is not there. This one was issued because your commission had been concerned about the role played by the Guyana police force in the elections,
Yes.
correct? And you issued a statement saying that in the view of your commission, that the Guyana police force seemed to have been acting under direct political direction. You issued such a statement. And you also said members of the commission and your observers had witnessed the deliberate and forceful intervention of heavily armed police in preventing the oversight of the statements of polls at GCOM by physically removing accredited political party representatives, accredited observers, including private sector observers, and the members of the media.
Correct.
Your statement was a very strong one.
Yes.
And I take it when you issued this statement, you were not issuing this statement in a personal capacity?
No.
And you also indicated that the commission had made numerous attempts to telephone the commissioner of police about the matters identified without success.
Correct.
You had also written to GCOM. Yes? You had written to GCOM on several occasions after the March 2nd general elections. And on the 26th of March 2020, did you get a reply?
I will have to see the correspondence.
Sure, of course. Good print.
Yes.
Is that the reply you got? You subsequently wrote to the chairman again on April 23rd, 2020, not so?
I'd have to see the document.
Sure, of course. I'm going to ask you to have a look at this document.
Yes.
I'm asking that this be admitted as GG8, 3 copies. And in this letter, the PSC was expressing what it described as its concern about the fraud that was perpetrated by the senior staff of GCOM during the Region 4 tabulation process. Correct?
Correct.
And as importantly was the fact that 53 days had passed since the elections had been held, and your commission was concerned about that.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, your commission also wrote to the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat about what was happening post-election, or what had happened.
Yes.
And if you see that letter, will you be able to identify it?
Yes.
And in that letter, I have to say, did you set out your concerns?
Can I have a look at the letter, please? Yes.
Of course.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
GG9, please.
Thank you.
And is it correct to say that your commission also wrote to the President of the European Union Commission?
Yes.
If you see your letter again, will you be able to identify it?
Yes. Yes.
Might this be marked GG10, please? You also wrote on the 27th of March to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. If you see your letter, you'll be able to identify it.
Yes. Yes.
GG11. And if I may just be given a minute to separate some of these documents, please. And you wrote to the General Secretary of the OAS. Can you recall whether the OAS had observers here at the time of the March 2nd Guyana elections?
Yes.
If you see the letter you wrote, will you be able to identify it?
Yes. Yes.
Did I hand you that letter?
This one?
Yeah, 27th of March.
Yes.
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 And 3 copies so you can balance. What number would that be? GG12, please. Now, I just want to clarify one thing. This list of accredited local observers. Now, you have also provided a list of the accredited local observers for PSE.
Yes.
If you see that list, will you be able to identify it?
Yes.
Might that be admitted as GG13? Also, your organization had several dozen accredited observers around the country, correct?
Yes.
And when you speak from the witness box and when you prepared your report, you had input from all of those people.
That's correct.
On March the 25th, you, when I say you, I mean the PSC, I'm washed down in paper, I beg your pardon. The last thing was
13.
Right, here we are, they are right here.
Can I just ask, this
Sure.
list of accredited local observers are just for your organization?
Yes.
On the 25th of March, PSC again wrote to the chairman of GCOM.
I'll have to see that.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I think you submitted the
A
reply to this
response.
letter. Yes, we did write
the
this letter.
response, yes. Might this be admitted as GG14, copies for the commissioners? Okay. So I want you to have a look at that list again. What number was it?
13. GG.
Yes, GG13. Now, this list has several dozen names on it, not so?
Yes.
And I am seeing the names Tenny, Pusty, Pauline Chase.
Yes.
They are Guyana Bar Association
Yes.
observers, not so?
Yes, but they all came under the under the umbrella of the Private Sector Commission.
I see. Commissioners, it is close to 3 o'clock and we have some video material to be shown.
We can continue for a while.
Okay, sure. Great.
Are you going to go to the video now?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I just want to, there have been a number of letters written to international organizations.
Yes.
In which there were serious representations being made.
Yes.
And they were all signed by you.
Yes.
On the 23rd of April, you sent a letter to the chairperson of GCOM.
Yes.
And your opening lines, would you like to see it?
Yes.
GG8, please. right to express our deepest concern about the fraud that was perpetrated by the senior staff of GCOM during the Region 4 tabulation process, which has resulted in a protracted legal process leading to the delay of the official election results.
Yes.
I want to ask you, Mr. Gawai, was there ever a letter of response from GCOM, from the chair of GCOM, denying this fraud that you referred to in the opening sentence?
I think we do have a reply to this letter in the, but I don't remember exactly what she said, but there was a reply to this.
So let's see if we can find that.
Yes, Chairman, I was just going to suggest, that perhaps I could look at the letter and have it shown to him.
Is that the letter we asked for the SOPs? I think we did ask for copies of the GCOM SOPs.
No, that's not the
We have
reply.
one letter
This is,
from GCOM dated March 26th.
yes, I'm looking to
And
see what.
refers to two letters from you dated March 20th and March 25th.
Okay.
This letter is dated April 23rd.
Okay.
So my question is, did you ever receive from GCOM and or the chairperson of GCOM a letter denying this fraud that you refer to here?
We had constant communication. I can't remember. I don't remember. I don't recall. If we had a reply from her at this time.
You can't remember?
No.
Okay. I want to take you to if there was a response, would that be part of the record of the private sector?
Yes. Yes.
Can you help us?
All of these documents came from the records of the Private Sector Commission, so I imagine it would have been in this file. Yes.
Well, I don't know if.
And if it isn't, I will check and get it back.
Everything.
I know it's a lot of paper that I have here, so I was quickly rifling through to see if I had
Omitted a letter.
Yes, no,
But maybe you
I
could-
don't
Well,
have it.
a check can be made because
tomorrow,
Sure.
rather than.
Yes, I do have one other document which I had now realized that I forgot to put in.
can Mr. Gawai be shown the press release which is dated March 5th? March 5th, press release. Private sector. GG4.
GG4. Private sector press release?
Yes, sir.
This is not a private sector.
Dated March 5th. GG4, I believe it was.
This one. Yeah, two.
Yes,
That
I
was a
have.
statement.
I'm referring to the second paragraph, Mr. Gawai. It is clear to all that the chairman of GCOM is allowing, without objection, the attempts to perpetuate election fraud under her watch.
Yes.
Were you the author of this press release?
I was the chairman of the Private Sector Commission, and yes, I did not. When a private sector, when a press release is done by the Private Sector Commission, it is drafted and then it is circulated by all before it is issued. And so there are people who draft this based on the agreement of everybody in the group.
So you would have agreed to this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Was there ever a denial from the chair of GCOM or GCOM of this very categorical statement?
No.
No denial. Third paragraph. The tabulation process has certainly raised doubts about the integrity of the GCOM chair, the chief elections officer, and some of their staffers. Was there any disputation, any denial of what was set out there by the Private Sector Commission?
No.
No. Thank you, sir.
Chairman, Commissioners, may I, with your leave, I forgot one of the documents out. Now, so you spoke about having written to the OAS as one of the organizations who you were trying to, get involved in the whole process. Now, did you see or have you produced a copy of a statement issued by the OAS Observation Mission dated 12th March 2020?
Can I put it?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, is that a document you produced to council?
Yes.
I'm asking that this be admitted as GG 15. Might we go to the videos?
Yes.
So, I want to look at it. But first,
this is crazy. I just left the GCOM Tabulation Center in Region 4, and the count had started back. And by the time I got here, only to hear that the GCOM officers have stopped the count and walked out to the room again. And so this is real an attack on the democratic process, that they would walk out to the room, and that room is filled with international observers, with local observers, with 5-party agents. Why would they do that? I mean, it's just crazy that the GCOM staff we just started back. They stopped at 9 o'clock, and we just started back not even half an hour ago, and then they probably worked for 15 minutes, and then walked out to the room again. Brothers and sisters, I don't know what to tell y'all. This is, and it's really damaging. It's really damaging an electoral system that was so well run, with such credibility. And for them to use all nine, we have 10 regions. 9 of the regions are declared already. The only region left outstanding now is Region 4. And this is becoming a complete masquerade. And so I hope that the international community looks at this and deal with this very, very strongly. I mean, I don't believe that anybody's going to leave that room tonight. Nobody's going to leave GCOM. They're going to be right in that room until the GCOM senior people come out there. But it's a real challenge. We were there all day today. We were there today when, much to our horror, the GCOM staff started calling numbers from a spreadsheet that was not connected to the statements of poll, and the numbers coming off the spreadsheet had no relevance to the statements of poll. And then eventually we had to raise an alarm and had it stopped. They had an emergency meeting of the GCOM commissioners and the chairperson, and they agreed to stop the process, and they agreed to return the process to where it should be, where the statements of poll was going to be read, and that was going to be put into the spreadsheet with all the party agents there witnessing it. And that process started, and Lowenfield came and he made a commitment to everybody that process was going to go throughout the night until it's finished. And then within an hour of it starting, they stopped it. And then we waited again another 3 hours. And now they stopped it again. They walked out of the room. So I'm not sure. I am really baffled as to why would GCOM staff completely smear the repetition of these elections. These elections today were praised by every single international observer up to the time of the counting of the poll at the polling station. When it moved to the next level, which was to come to the returning officer, all the regions declared. Now just one region needs to be declared, and this nonsense has happened again. So I just wanted, because I know that a few minutes ago I did say that they started, and by the time I turned off my phone and came here, only to hear that they stopped it again. So I'll monitor it, and hopefully we'll keep everybody updated. But it's a terrible, terrible thing that is happening in Guyana. It's a real attack on our democracy. And I don't know how anybody in their right mind in 2020 could do this to a country like Guyana that is on the verge of such enormous prosperity, a prosperity that will benefit every single man, woman, and child in this country. You know. And I made the point, the U.S. ambassador made it very clear, that the U.S. stands ready to work with the democratically elected government of Guyana. So any government that is elected by a fraudulent system, electoral system, is not a democratic government. And the international community will come down like a ton of bricks. We have never had an army of foreign observers like we have. We have the European Union, the Commonwealth Secretariat, the OAS, CARICOM, the Carter Center, all the local observers. I mean, this has been a most highly scrutinized elections because of what is happening to Guyana. And why would they? And they really did a good job. I mean, with everything that we went through, GCOM did a really, really good job in getting these elections. Only now, for this to happen, it is mind-boggling that they would do this to themselves. Anyway, guys, sorry about that. I'll talk to you later if anything else develops. Thank you.
Right. So this this recording was made on the night of the 4th. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is you setting out. Sorry, night of the 5th, and that is you setting out PSC's observations up till that point in time, yes. Correct? I'm asking for this to be admitted as GG16. Next video, please.
I have never seen a more transparent effort.
His name?
Mr. Boland, the former Prime Minister of Jamaica.
And had he?
He was the
former Prime Minister
of Jamaica, and he was the head of the OAS observer team.
Yes. So had he been in Guyana as an observer?
Yes.
An international observer?
Yes.
Can you recall which group he represented?
The OAS.
The OAS, thank you. Will you continue?
Alter the results of an election. And this is being illustrated now as the recount proceeds.
Make any sense out of it. If we can't do better, let's move on to another video.
One of those voting stations
person on screen?
Yes,
And is that the EU ambassador to Guyana?
correct.
Was he here as a part of their observer mission for the March 2020 elections?
He is the resident ambassador, but he was a designated observer for elections.
Thank you.
What's his name?
Sorry?
His name?
Fernando.
Pumscan.
Yes.
From the different parties, you could see the presiding officers, you could see the members of the voting committee tables, and they were all extremely conscientious. One person came to vote, he or she has to identify himself, but then also he had to be seen on the list, and there were pictures, which in my country we never had pictures, so I was quite positively impressed, and everybody could see everything. And at the end of the vote, he had to dip his finger on ink, which in my country we never did. So, I mean, it was safeguard after safeguard after safeguard. It was impossible to cheat.
PSC?
The last, yes.
Yes. Can we move on?
And 4109, Annual 3, Atom plus AFC 133, CG2, LJP 3, PTPC 206, PRP 3, PCI 2, TNM 0, URP 0, 352. 4110, and
that is the statement of poll number 4109, correct?
Yes.
And the numbers called were different from the numbers that we were shown on the sheet.
That's correct.
The audio which we got was different from what we were shown on the sheet. Now the voice of the person calling, is that a GCOM worker calling?
Yes, yes.
I'm asking that that be admitted as GG18.
Do you know the name of that person?
No, sir.
Can we move on to the next video?
U plus AFC.
In evidence. One after that.
Which was being led by returning officer Clermont Mingo.
We said it very clearly. This tabulation process for Region 4 was not credible. It was not reflecting the will of the people. It had clearly followed a process which was not the right process. I saw it personally. I was there. I was in the tabulation center. But again, it doesn't really matter that I saw it personally. What really matters is that all our observer missions saw it. So this goes back to what I just told you before. It is a mistake to underestimate the intelligence of people and of the people of Guyana as well, because I'm tempted to say that we all.
That's as far as we can get apparently. So might that be admitted as GG19? So these are our exhibits. And this is the evidence of Captain Bubai.
Thank you very much, Captain.
No.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Captain.
Thank you.
Happy visit.
Thank you very much.
Where are we now?
Where are we? Well, we don't have another witness.
Yeah. So we'll now take the adjournment until 9 o'clock tomorrow. Right.